Hi, I'm Nikki from Find Me Crafting. All year long, I've been releasing patterns for the Cuddle Buddies baby blanket. All of the patterns are free, and it's called the Cuddle Buddies blanket because it has cute little animal appliques all over it. Up till today, we had 8 animal applique patterns out. The koala, a cat, a teddy bear, a pig, a bunny, a cow, a sloth, and a monkey. Today, I'm releasing the 9th and final animal pattern for this blanket. It is a horse. I have tutorials for each step of this animal applique. And isn't the final product just so stinking cute? Come on, I'll show you how. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any new patterns or projects. Let's talk about yarn. You're going to need some size 4 worsted weight yarn. I'm using Hobby Lobby's I Love This yarn in the colors cinnamon, white, and black. And this particular applique is made entirely with a G 4mm hook. To start off, you're going to want to make a head. This is made with the color cinnamon, and it is the same head as the other ones in the Cuddle Buddies blanket series. So I'm going to put a link up here for a tutorial that'll walk you through how to make this entire head step by step. Now I want to show you how to make the horse's muzzle, and the pattern for the first part of the muzzle is the same 3 rows that you make for the head. So if you want to use that same tutorial that you use for the head, you can just do rows 1, 2, and 3. And at that point, things are going to get a little bit different. I am using white yarn. I've just finished row 3. I slip stitched to my first stitch, and I'm going to chain 1 just like I did in the other 3 rows. So for this first stitch, I'm going to slip stitch again under the next stitch. Then I'm going to do 2 single crochets. So 1 in this stitch, 1 in the next stitch, and then another slip stitch. Now at this point, we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn the work over. So we're going to be working back over just that little row here. Instead of going all the way around, we're going to be building this way. Now, we want to do 4 single crochets across this. So we're going to do a single crochet right here under the slip stitch we just did. Then the 2 single crochets, we're going to single crochet into those. And then we're going to do another single crochet into the top of that slip stitch we did at the start. We're going to chain 1, and in rows 5 through 12, so you're going to do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 rows the exact same way. You're just going to do a single crochet into each of these 4 stitches, going across, and then chain 1, turn your work. And I'm just going to repeat that until I have my 12th row of single crochets. When you're done, you're going to want to leave yourself a long tail, cut that off. You can use that later to sew the muzzle onto the head. So now with the cinnamon yarn, we're going to make an ear. So this begins with a chain. So I'm going to do a slip knot, tighten it up, and I'm going to chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Now in the second chain from the hook, here's the first chain closest to my hook, here's the second. In that second chain, I'm going to single crochet. And then in this final chain, I'm going to do another single crochet. So I have 2 here, and this is a tiny little row. So I'm going to chain 1 and then turn my work so that I can work along these stitches I just made. Now in each stitch, I'm going to place 2 single crochets. So under this first stitch, I'm going to single crochet 1 and now go back into the same stitch and do my second. Now I'm going to move to the next stitch and do 2 single crochets into that one. And there's another tiny little row. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work again. And now for row 3, I'm going to do 1 single crochet into each of these 4 stitches, 3 and 4, and that's row 3. I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and I'm going to do the exact same thing in rows 4, 5, and 6. So 3 more rows of just 1 single crochet into each stitch. Now that I've finished my 6th row, I want to work down the sides of the ear. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. So I'm working down the first side, and I want to do 6 single crochets down this side. So 1, 2, whoops, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now I'm turning slightly over here. Keep your starting tail out of the way. Chain 2, and I want to place another single crochet into that same spot that I did my last one. And now we've turned again, and we're going to work down this side. And I want to place another 6 single crochets down this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now I'm going to slip stitch under this stitch here, just to the left, and you can cut your yarn and finish off. There is one more little detail to the ear that I'm going to do. I'm going to use my long tail and a yarn needle, and I just want to fold over one edge of the ear so that I'm folding it and affixing it here about 3 stitches in at the bottom. I just want my ear to be a little bit curled, and I'm just going to stitch this side of the ear to the center of the ear so it stays in place. I'm going to leave my long tail attached so that I can sew my ear on, and I'm going to make a second ear just like this, only I want to fold in the other side of the ear. We're going to be using the black yarn to make 2 hooves. So with the black yarn, we're going to do a magic circle. And if you have any trouble with magic circles, I'm going to put a link up here for a tutorial that walks you through a bit slower on how to do magic circles. And I'm going to reach through and grab my yarn, pull my fingers out, and chain 1 to hold my magic circle. We are now going to be working around both pieces of yarn here, our starting tail and the circle we just made. And I'm going to put 4 single crochets into this magic circle. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now we want to pull on our starting tail to close it, but I'm going to hold my stitches with my right hand. I'm going to pull it mostly closed. I don't actually want a circle here. So I want it to look kind of like a little half circle, just like that. And I'm going to chain 1. And I'm going to turn my work. So I'm not working in a circle. I'm working back along the stitches that I just made. And I'm going to put 1 single crochet into each of those stitches. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to chain 1 again and turn my work again and work back along these stitches the way I just did. So that's another 4 single crochets. So at this point, we're not going to work back along these stitches. We're going to turn the work slightly this way, and going from this side down the bottom and around either side, I want to work 6 single crochets. I'm going to start with a chain 1, and then on just those 6 single crochets as you continue to turn it sort of clockwise. So here's 2 and 3, get my starting tail out of the way, and 4, 5, and 6. Now I'm just going to slip stitch into this next stitch over here near where I finished last, and there is a hoof. You just need to finish off, pull your yarn through, you can weave in your starting tail and make a second hoof. The last thing we're going to make is the horse's forelock, which is the part of the mane that hangs over the front of the head. It's like the horse's bangs, and that's what I'm going to refer to it as now, the horse bangs. And for that, we're going to work with black yarn, and we're going to start with a slip knot. And we need to chain 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now beginning in the second chain from the hook here, we're going to slip stitch into that chain, and then we're going to slip stitch into 2 more. So into the next chain we slip stitch, and into the third chain we slip stitch. Now in these remaining 3 chains, we want to place 2 single crochets into each one. So here's 1 single crochet, and then in the same stitch a second. Now we're going to switch the next stitch and do 1 single crochet and then the second. And in the last stitch we do 1 single crochet and the second. So that piece is actually done. You can cut yourself a longer tail because we're going to use that to stitch this to the horse's head. I'm going to pull it through, and you can see that it curls just a little bit. If you encourage it a little bit, it will curl, and you need to make 3 of these. So you have 3 total pieces of bang. Using a yarn needle, I'm going to start assembling the horse, and I'm going to do that a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of assembling before I attach it to the blanket. So here's my muzzle and this forehead stripe area that I'm sure has a name, but I don't know. I'm going to line up the top of this row with the top of the head, and I'm going to stitch that like this. That will leave a couple rows here hanging off the bottom of the head, and that's what we want. So I just need to use my yarn tail. I'm going to stitch these 2 together. Just going to go down through the head. I'm going to move over a stitch, come back up through the head and the forehead stripe thingy, and move over and continue doing that. And now I'm going to work down this side around here, and I can't attach this bottom piece to anything, so I'm going to just do some stitches here that attach the bottom part of this muzzle to the bottom part of my head. I'm going to come back up and do this side here. Next up, I'm going to embroider on some features. So I've cut myself a length of probably 12 inches of black yarn. I have it on my yarn needle, and I'm going to start with some nostrils. So I'm going to come up through the back with my yarn needle. I'm going to pull the black through, not all the way through. I want to leave myself a tail to knot to. And I'm just going to go down over here and make myself a little nostril. Now I'm going to come back up through the same hole and go back down through the same hole just a second time to kind of widen that nostril. And now I am going to skip over here and work my second nostril in about the same place. With this same bit of yarn, I'm also going to embroider on a bit of a smile just because I like my animals to look happy. So I'm going to come over here to the right. I'm going to give them a half smile. I'm going to come down over here, and that's going to be my smile, just like that. I'm going to knot these pieces together, and I'm going to trim my ends, but I'm going to leave them a little bit longer on the back because that'll be trapped behind my applique. And now I'm going to work on the eyes. So I've cut myself a larger piece of black yarn. It's probably about 20 inches. That's excessive. I know that, but I just don't like running out. So I'm going to do my eyes. I'm going to come up about where I want my eye to be. I'm going to leave a length on the back. Don't pull that through. I'll go down about 2 or 3 stitches, pull that through. Now to make that wider, I'm going to repeat that process a number of times. I'm going to come back up through the same hole, back down through the same hole. That's my second. I'm going to come back up through that same hole and down a third time. This time I will try to line up my yarn so that it falls to the right side of the other lines I've made. That widens it a little bit on the right. I'm going to come back up through the same hole and back down through the same hole. This time I'm going to make sure that my yarn falls to the left so we can expand the eye a little to the left. And I might do one more time through. That is my 5th pass, same holes. And this one I'm going to pull to the outside of the right. And that is the black portion of the eye. Now without cutting off, I'm going to repeat that process for the left eye on the other side. The last thing I'm going to do before I attach the head to the blanket is add some eye whites. So I've got just a little bit of white yarn. I'm going to do I'm going to come up through the same hole that I did the rest of the eye in, leave a tail in the back. I'm going to go down through the same hole that I did all the rest of this eye. I'm going to pull my tail through though. But now as I'm pulling it down, I want it to be angled to the outside of the eye. And I'm just going to pull it over. You can use your yarn needle to arrange things. You want to pull it tight enough that it's not bubbling up, but not so tight that it disappears into the head. There we go. So that's one eye white, and I'm going to repeat that process on the other side. The next thing I'm going to do is attach the head and this bottom part of the muzzle to the blanket itself. I like to put it in the corner so that when I put the little hooves on, it looks like he is holding on to this edge, the sort of frame that is created by the blanket joins. I'm going to use the long tail I left behind to stitch on this portion of the head, and I am going to attach another piece of white yarn just to sew this bottom portion on. I don't want to use this tail because you would see the brown showing through the white. Sew down the ears and the hooves. And I wanted to point out that when you sew down the ear, I've begun sewing this one down. I'm going to sew kind of on the inside of this curve here so that this edge stays raised up. So I'm just going to place all my stitches right in here. The part that's flat against the blanket is where I'm going to stitch it down. The last thing to attach are the horse's forelock or bang area. And I have tucked in all the ends for 2 of those pieces. And the third piece I tucked in my starting end but left myself a long tail for. And I'm going to attach all 3 pieces. I'm going to kind of stack them near each other, and I'm going to attach all of them using this one tail end. And I'm just going to go down and up through the pieces to affix them right here at the top of the head. And then your horse is done and ready to rock. You can put this applique on a blanket, a bag, a scarf, a hat, anywhere you think it might look cute. Happy crafting!